Thinking positively without understanding yourself is like painting light on a shadowed wall. Carl Jung. They told you to think positive, didn't they? That your thoughts shape your world, that if you just smiled a little harder, the storm would disappear. But you tried it, and deep down you knew. The clouds didn't always clear. The bills didn't pay themselves. The ache didn't fade just because you whispered affirmations into the mirror. And so, in the silence between everything's fine and the truth you didn't dare speak, a question began to echo. If positive thinking really works, why do I still feel lost? There is a kind of tyranny hidden inside forced positivity, a soft, pastel-colored cage built out of good intentions. It tells you to smile while your heart trembles. It urges you to deny your fear instead of understand it. It paints over the cracks instead of learning the art of mending. And yet, within that tension lies the threshold of something far greater, the point where real transformation begins. You see, positive thinking is not the problem. It's the misunderstanding of it. It's the confusion between pretending to feel good and becoming someone who can hold both pain and power in the same breath. Imagine standing in a desert. The sun is merciless, the horizon flickers with heat. You're told, just picture an oasis. So you do. You imagine water, shade, relief. But your lips are still cracked. Your feet still burn. Visualization without embodiment is hallucination. Positive thinking without inner integration is spiritual dehydration. You cannot drink an image of water. You must walk, blistered, thirsty, trembling, until you become the kind of person who can reach the oasis. That's what this journey is about. Not the fragile optimism of pretending the storm isn't coming, but the courageous realism of learning how to sail through it. In this exploration, we're going to dismantle the myth that positive thinking is enough. Because the truth is, it's not about thinking positively. It's about thinking clearly. It's not about feeling good. It's about feeling whole. This distinction is what separates those who chase success from those who embody it, those who manifest sporadically from those who create predictably, those who live in reaction to circumstance from those who become the cause behind it. If you look closely, every great mind, from the ancient Stoics to the modern innovators, understood something most of us forget, that thoughts are not seeds you scatter randomly, hoping one will grow. They are instruments, tools, keys. And if you don't know how to play them, they create noise, not music. Positive thinking teaches you to keep pressing the same cheerful note, but mastery comes when you learn to compose symphonies from both light and shadow. Because the human mind is not a garden of only flowers, it's a wilderness, and the wild is sacred. It's where intuition whispers truths that polite optimism drowns out. It's where your real power, not the Instagram version, not the motivational poster version, begins to stir. Think about it. Every moment you've grown wasn't when things were perfect. It was when your heart cracked open, when comfort fell away, when you were forced to question your illusions. In those moments, you weren't thinking positive, you were becoming conscious. The person who says everything's fine when it isn't stays stuck in illusion. The person who says this hurts, but I will use it, steps into evolution. True power does not come from denying darkness. It comes from learning how to turn darkness into depth. Let's bring this into the world of achievement,
business, wealth, performance. Because you can sit in front of your vision board chanting mantras about abundance, but if your nervous system is locked in fear, if your subconscious still believes you're unworthy, then every affirmation becomes an argument you lose with yourself. The universe does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. And so the work is not to think positive, but to align truthfully, to train your inner world until optimism is not a costume you wear, but the natural fragrance of a mind at peace with itself.
This is where real manifestation begins, not as a wish, but as a skill. The alchemy of shifting your emotional state not through denial, but through mastery. The science of rewiring your beliefs so deeply that even your silence vibrates confidence. The goal is not to eliminate negative thoughts, that's impossible. It's to create such depth of awareness that even when negativity appears, it becomes part of your wisdom instead of your prison. You see, positive thinking is like sunlight, beautiful, necessary, but useless without roots. Roots are what anchor the tree during storms. Roots are what drink from the hidden underground rivers, the subconscious, the unspoken, the unhealed. Without roots, sunlight burns. With roots, it nourishes. And so the task before us is not to reject positivity, but to root it, to move from surface thinking to deep awareness, from wishful affirmations to embodied truth, from pretending to progress to actually evolving. The mind is a kingdom, and positive thinking is only one of its ministers. But the ruler, the true sovereign, is consciousness, and consciousness requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to see reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Because from that clarity comes real creation. From that stillness comes power. From that acceptance comes peace, the kind that doesn't need to be painted with fake smiles. So tonight, as we begin this journey, I invite you to set aside the slogans, the quick fixes, the emotional sugar, and step into something deeper. The kind of transformation that isn't about thinking happy thoughts, but about remembering who you are when thoughts themselves fall silent. This is not about optimism, it's about awakening. And in that awakening, you will find not only peace, but power. Not only light, but a fire that cannot be extinguished. Because you won't just believe in abundance, you'll embody it. You'll become the cause of it. And from that point on, positive thinking will feel like child's play compared to what you truly are capable of.
There is an old saying, whispered in temples and boardrooms alike. The mind is a faithful servant, but a terrible master. And nowhere is this truer than in the modern cult of positivity. We have been taught to treat our thoughts like sacred commandments, to silence the ones that frighten us and worship the ones that flatter us. But the mind does not respond to censorship, it responds to understanding. You cannot build a kingdom by pretending the shadows aren't there. You must learn to light the torch and walk through them. The illusion of positive thinking. Let's begin by dismantling the illusion itself. The idea that if you think good thoughts, good things will come. It's a beautiful sentiment and a half-truth. Because, yes, your thoughts influence your reality, but they do not create it in isolation. Thoughts are sparks, but sparks need fuel. And the fuel is emotion, belief, action, and alignment. Think of it like this. Positive thinking is the blueprint of a house, but you still need to dig the foundation, mix the concrete, and raise the walls. The blueprint is vision. The work is transformation. Without one, the other collapses. Most people fall in love with their blueprints, beautiful, hopeful, symmetrical, but they never touch the soil. They say, "I'm manifesting," while their old fears still rule the underground. And the universe, which speaks in the language of vibration and truth, doesn't respond to the picture you want it to see. It responds to the frequency you actually emit. The core contrast, pretending versus becoming. Here lies the heart of this teaching. Pretending and becoming are not the same thing. Pretending is fragile. It demands constant maintenance, forced smiles, rehearsed gratitude, shallow affirmations that echo in the mind but never reach the bones. Becoming, on the other hand, is powerful. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't even need to believe. It knows. When you become abundant, you stop chasing abundance. When you become love, you stop begging for it. When you become confident, you stop needing proof. Positive thinking tries to convince the mind. True transformation reprograms the nervous system. This is where most people fail, not because they lack desire, but because they've mistaken intellectual optimism for embodied evolution. Ancient wisdom, modern insight. The ancients knew something we have forgotten in our rush for instant results. The Stoics didn't say, "Think positive." They said, "Perceive clearly." The Buddhists didn't say, "Reject suffering." They said, "See through it." And the mystics didn't say, "Avoid darkness." They said, "Become the light that can stand in it." Modern science now echoes these truths. Neuroscience tells us that emotion drives behavior far more powerfully than logic. Cognitive psychology shows that denial strengthens the very thoughts we try to suppress. And quantum theory, in its poetic way, reveals that observation itself alters reality. So when you cling to positive thinking, you are often reinforcing the polarity, labeling half of life as bad and trying desperately to escape it. But what if there is no bad? What if everything is a teacher waiting for your awareness to extract its wisdom? Short-term comfort versus long-term transformation. Positive thinking feels good in the short term, like sugar for the soul. It gives you a rush of hope, a momentary sense of control. But real transformation is more like fasting. It cleanses the system, purges the illusions, and sometimes, yes, it hurts. Success psychology calls this delayed gratification. Spiritual philosophy calls it the dark night of the soul. In truth, they're the same thing: the willingness to endure temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent clarity. To the entrepreneur, this means facing the fear of failure instead of masking it with slogans. To the dreamer, it means confronting procrastination, not just visualizing the outcome. To the seeker, it means sitting in silence until your mind stops performing and starts revealing. Positive thinking asks, "How can I feel better?" Conscious evolution asks, "What is this feeling trying to teach me?" The difference between the two is the difference between comfort and mastery. Ancient alchemy, turning thoughts into gold. The old alchemists weren't just obsessed with turning lead into gold. That was metaphor. Lead represented unconsciousness, heavy, dense, inert. Gold represented awakened awareness, luminous, refined, pure. And the secret of alchemy was never about manipulation. It was about transmutation. The same energy that creates fear can create wisdom. The same pain that once broke you can become the foundation of your resilience. The same ego that sought attention can become the clarity that serves the world. This is what modern positive thinking misses. It tries to replace lead with gold, skip the process.
But transformation is not replacement. It's integration. You don't throw out your darkness, you refine it. You don't silence your pain, you listen to it until it becomes a map. When you understand that, positivity is no longer a mask. It's the natural glow of transmuted awareness.
The fusion of mind, emotion, and action. To manifest anything, wealth, peace, freedom, you must unite three realms: the mental, thought, the emotional, feeling, and the physical, action. Most people stop at the first. They think, they visualize, they affirm. But manifestation is a trinity. Thought gives direction, emotion provides fuel, action grounds it in reality. If any one is missing, the circuit breaks. The mind says yes, but the heart whispers no. The words speak abundance, but the body still vibrates fear. When all three align, reality bends. This is not mysticism, it's coherence. And coherence is the real secret behind every so-called miracle. The power of awareness. So what actually works? Awareness. Simple, ruthless, liberating awareness. Because awareness is the light that reveals the machinery behind your thoughts. It shows you where your positivity is performative, where your optimism hides anxiety, where your affirmations are built on fear. When you become aware, you don't need to fight negativity. It dissolves in understanding. You don't need to chase success. It becomes the natural byproduct of clarity. And that is the paradox. The moment you stop trying to force positive thinking, you become naturally positive. Not through denial, but through depth. The shift from attraction to creation. Law of attraction is often misunderstood as waiting for reality to rearrange itself around your mood. But true creators don't attract reality, they generate it. They understand that thought alone is not enough. They cultivate energy, alignment, and purpose so powerfully that the world has no choice but to echo their vibration. Positive thinking says, I hope it happens. Creation says, I am becoming the person for whom it naturally happens. And that shift from hoping to becoming is everything. To master this, you must practice seeing yourself not as the thinker of thoughts, but as the space in which thought arises. Not as the actor playing the role of positive person, but as the director shaping the story itself. When you realize this, the illusion collapses, and in its place, something eternal awakens, the quiet, steady intelligence that has always known what to do. Not to think away your pain, but to walk through it into wisdom. Not to fake light, but to remember you are it. This is the turning point, from pretending to becoming, from attraction to creation, from illusion to embodiment. From here, the story deepens, because the truths we've spoken of, alignment, awareness, integration, are not theories. They are living forces that can be felt, practiced, embodied. And to truly grasp them, we must step into story, into symbol, into myth, because the soul understands in images what the intellect struggles to express. So let us go there, into the realm where metaphors breathe, where wisdom walks disguised as parable, and where the alchemy of the human spirit reveals itself beneath the stars.
There is a story older than memory itself, told in firelight, whispered through civilizations, retold in new tongues, yet always pointing to the same invisible truth. It begins not with light, but with darkness, because before there was day, there was night. Before every creation, there is the void. And within that void, something waits, not to be thought away, but to be understood. This is the story of a traveler who learned why positive thinking fails and what it truly means to create light from within. The Traveler and the Mirror Desert. Once, in a time that feels like both long ago and tomorrow, there was a wanderer, a seeker of wisdom and success. He had heard the teachings of the world. Think positive and the universe will obey. So he set out across the great Mirror Desert, a vast plain said to reflect the contents of one's mind. In the beginning, he was elated. He smiled to himself, repeating mantras of wealth, of love, of victory. And for a time, the desert shimmered with beauty. Jeweled sands, golden horizons, mirages of paradise dancing in the heat. But after days of walking, the illusions began to fade. The air grew still, the mirrors dulled. His affirmations echoed back at him like hollow incantations. He began to shout his positive words louder, desperate to hold on to the vision. But the desert answered with silence. Finally, exhausted, he fell to his knees and wept, not out of despair, but because, for the first time, he stopped pretending. It was then that the sand stirred. From beneath it emerged a figure cloaked in silver dust, an old sage, eyes like starlight on calm water. "Why does my positive thinking no longer work?" asked the traveler. "I've tried so hard to stay optimistic." The sage smiled faintly. "You have mistaken the mirror for the light itself." "What do you mean?" "The desert shows you not what you wish to see, but what you are. When you were hopeful, it reflected your hope. But when your hope was only a disguise for fear, it reflected that too." The traveler fell silent. "So what must I do?" "Do not think positive," said the sage. "See truthfully. Feel everything, even what frightens you, until nothing within you hides. Only then will your reflection become whole." And when the traveler finally stopped resisting, when he breathed into his fear, allowed his tears to fall, allowed the silence to cleanse him, the desert began to shimmer again. But this time it was not an illusion. The sand itself glowed softly, as if every grain carried a spark of his own awareness. He had not created beauty by thinking it, he had become it. The Merchant and the Storm. There's another tale of a merchant who built his fortune on positivity. Each morning he stood before his market stall, declaring, "Today will bring profit, today will bring luck." At first it worked. Customers came, gold coins clinked. But then one season the winds changed. Trade routes closed, crops failed, and storms flooded the streets. Still, the merchant smiled. He told himself, "I must think positive," as his wares spoiled in the rain. One night, as thunder roared, a voice from the darkness spoke, low, calm, unwavering. "Your positivity is pride in disguise." Startled, the merchant looked around, seeing nothing but rain. "Who speaks?" he demanded. "I am the storm you refuse to see," said the voice. "I keep saying it's sunny while standing in the flood. You think optimism will stop the rain, but wisdom would build a shelter." The merchant, humbled, built his first shelter that night.
He stopped repeating words and began reading the weather of his own mind. And when he finally learned to move with the storm instead of denying it, he found something greater than luck. He found mastery. Because true positivity is not resistance to chaos, it is harmony with it. It is the art of bending without breaking, adapting without losing center.
The Alchemist's Fire. There was once an alchemist who lived in a tower of smoke and glass, surrounded by vials, symbols, and books older than empires. He sought to create gold, to transmute lead into light. But no matter how he chanted or mixed, his metals stayed dull. He grew frustrated, muttering affirmations of success. "I am abundant. I am powerful. I am the light." Still, nothing. At last, in his rage, he struck the table, and the vial shattered, spilling mercury across his notes. He fell to his knees, defeated. And then he saw it, the reflection of his own face in the mercury's surface, trembling yet radiant in candlelight. In that reflection, he realized the truth. The fire he sought outside was meant to be lit within. He whispered, "Alchemy was never about changing metal. It was about changing me." He stoked his inner flame through discipline, through awareness, through the courage to face his unrefined emotions. And as he did, the metals began to glow. For the gold was not the goal, it was the mirror of mastery. The cosmic law beneath all stories. Every myth whispers the same lesson, that the universe does not respond to surface thought, it responds to energetic integrity. You cannot deceive your vibration with words. You cannot trick creation with forced smiles. The cosmos reads what your energy believes, not what your lips proclaim. If your affirmations say, "I am abundant," but your energy says, "I am afraid," the universe will always answer the louder voice, the one within. So what actually works is not control, it's coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions speak the same truth, the world rearranges itself accordingly. It's not think positive, it's think truthfully, feel authentically, act courageously. The forge and the flame. Every soul must pass through a forge, that sacred place where illusion melts and essence reveals itself. For some, the forge is heartbreak, for others, loss, for others still, the silent realization that what they've been chasing is not what they truly desire. In the heat of that forge, positive thinking burns away. What remains is presence, raw, aware, unshakable. And from that presence, a new kind of positivity emerges, not bright and manic, but serene and powerful. It's the positivity of a warrior who knows storms will come and still chooses to walk forward. It's the positivity of the mountain that endures every season, yet never moves from its center. That is the real gold. That is the real success. Each of us walks through our own desert, our own storm, our own forge. But when we stop performing for the universe and begin collaborating with it, life transforms from a battle into a dance. Positive thinking was never the destination. It was the beginner's charm, the child's spell, necessary to start. But maturity comes when we realize the goal was never to avoid the shadow, but to learn how to shine through it. So let us now descend from the realm of story and symbol back into the living world, the world of mornings and meetings, money and meaning. Because wisdom, if it cannot breathe in the modern day, is still only theory.
let us explore how these truths take shape in the tangible, how they shape wealth, mindset, leadership, and love, how you can live this alchemy every single day.
The stories of the traveler, the merchant, and the alchemist are not myths of the past. They are mirrors of us. We are all walking through deserts of reflection, weathering storms of circumstance, and tending the fire of our own inner alchemy. But stories mean nothing unless they translate into action. And action means nothing unless it's aligned with awareness. This is where philosophy meets practicality, where myth becomes method. Because the purpose of wisdom is not to make us dreamier, but clearer. Not to detach us from the world, but to teach us how to move within it with mastery. The foundation of true transformation: emotional honesty. The first real-world application of everything we've explored is this: stop lying to yourself in the name of positivity. Emotional honesty is not weakness, it is the foundation of self-mastery. When you say, "I'm fine," while drowning in anxiety, you bury your power under pretense. When you tell yourself, "I'm confident," while secretly terrified of failure, your energy fractures. Your inner world becomes dissonant. But when you say, "I am afraid, but I am willing to understand this fear," something miraculous happens. You integrate. And integration is what makes your energy coherent. Because your subconscious, the invisible architect of 95% of your behavior, doesn't respond to words, it responds to truth. And truth, when embraced without judgment, begins to reorder everything. The power of coherence, how reality mirrors inner alignment. Imagine a tuning fork struck in a silent room. Every object that vibrates at the same frequency begins to hum. That's coherence. Your life works the same way. If your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in harmony, the external world, opportunities, people, circumstances, begins to align with that tone. That's not magic, it's resonance. That's why thinking positive without emotional or behavioral alignment often backfires. It's like striking one tuning fork while the others remain silent. The sound never carries. So instead of repeating affirmations like, "I am abundant," begin with this triad: clarity, calibration, and commitment. Clarity: identify what you truly want. Not what sounds impressive, not what others celebrate, but what your soul actually craves. Calibration: bring your emotions into alignment. If you feel scarcity, don't deny it, explore its roots, transform it through awareness, and let abundance arise naturally. Commitment: act consistently with that new frequency. Don't wait to feel ready. Move as if your new reality is already breathing around you. This is how you become the vibration, not just imagine it. From affirmation to activation, a daily practice. Here's how to bridge this philosophy into daily life. Each morning, before the noise of the world fills your mind, take 3 minutes, just 3, to practice what I call the inner alignment ritual. Breathe into honesty. Sit still, breathe. Ask yourself, what am I truly feeling right now? No filters, no judgment. Name it, feel it. Transform through acceptance. Once the feeling is seen, breathe into it as though you were holding a child, your own emotion asking to be understood, not silenced. You'll feel it begin to soften. Awareness transmutes what resistance intensifies. Now, anchor a clear intention. Ask, who do I choose to be today? Not what you wish would happen, but who you decide to embody. Speak it once, clearly, not as a demand, but as a declaration of alignment. Act immediately. Take one small action that supports that identity. Send the message, make the call, create the plan, lift the weight, write the page. Action:
locks awareness into form. Repeat this, and positivity will stop being something you chase, it will become something you generate. The entrepreneur's lens, energy as currency. For the high performer, the leader, the builder, this is vital. Your energy is your currency. Your emotional coherence is your leverage. A business built on forced optimism crumbles under stress, but a business built on self-awareness becomes anti-fragile. It grows from challenge. When you understand this, every obstacle becomes data, not disaster. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and you start asking, "What is this showing me about my alignment?" Wealth, then, becomes not an outcome, but a reflection. The outer market mirrors your inner one. If your internal market is flooded with scarcity, the fear of losing, the obsession with comparison, your actions will unconsciously sabotage growth. But if your internal market is stable, confident, generous, success becomes inevitable because your decisions begin to flow from clarity, not desperation. That's what the most powerful entrepreneurs and creators on Earth share. Not blind optimism, but emotional discipline. They don't think positive, they think precisely. Emotional mastery in relationships and leadership. Let's bring it closer to the heart. Relationships, personal or professional, are amplifiers of your internal state. If you're pretending to be positive to avoid conflict, that suppression becomes emotional static that others feel. But when you lead with grounded honesty, "This situation challenges me, but I'm open to finding truth within it," people sense something rare: integrity. In a world addicted to performance, authenticity feels magnetic. It builds trust, and trust is the invisible currency of all meaningful success. Positive thinking isolates. Embodied truth connects. Because positivity without empathy becomes noise, but truth spoken with awareness becomes music, the kind that moves hearts and unites teams. Turning negativity into intelligence. You cannot eliminate negative emotions, but you can educate them. Anger shows you where your boundaries are unclear. Fear shows you where your faith is undeveloped. Envy shows you where your potential lies dormant. Sadness shows you what still matters deeply. Every so-called negative emotion is a signal, a mentor in disguise. Instead of saying, "I must stop feeling this," try asking, "What is this emotion trying to tell me about how I've been living?" That one shift turns suffering into data, and data, interpreted wisely, becomes power.
Creating an energetic feedback loop. When your thoughts align with your emotions and your actions, you enter what mystics and neuroscientists alike call flow state. It's that place where effort feels effortless, where time dissolves, where results appear to chase you. But flow is not found by thinking happy thoughts. It's earned through consistency, self-trust, and emotional regulation. Every time you show up aligned, even when it's hard, you strengthen that feedback loop. It's like charging a battery of self-trust. Over time, that battery becomes an engine that runs on clarity instead of chaos. And that's when success begins to feel inevitable, because it's no longer external luck, it's internal law. Living the alchemy. Let's return to our symbols one last time. The traveler, the merchant, the alchemist. Their transformations began not when they thought positive, but when they became aware. You are that traveler, walking your own mirror desert. You are that merchant, learning to build shelter in the storm. You are that alchemist, refining raw emotion into wisdom. Every fear you face becomes gold when you stop resisting its lesson. Every failure becomes fuel
when you understand its pattern. Every moment of doubt becomes sacred when it invites you to deepen your awareness. That is how you live this philosophy, not as an idea, but as a rhythm, not as an escape from the world, but as a dance within it. So if positive thinking was the child's spell, then this is the adult's art. To see clearly, to feel deeply, to act courageously, to live truthfully. And from that state, positivity no longer needs to be forced. It radiates naturally, like sunlight through clean glass.
There comes a moment at the end of every journey when the traveler stops walking, not because they have reached the destination, but because they realize they were the destination all along. And so we stand here at the end of this exploration, surrounded by echoes of every idea, every truth, every fragment of self we have encountered. We began by questioning positive thinking. Now we understand it was never the enemy, it was the invitation, the first flicker of light that led us deeper into the cave. But true light, the kind that never burns out, does not come from pretending the cave isn't there. It comes from learning how to see within it. The final distinction: illusion versus illumination. Positive thinking tells you to escape your pain. Awareness teaches you to transmute it. Positive thinking asks you to control your thoughts. Awareness invites you to witness them. Positive thinking says, everything is good. Awareness whispers, everything is meaningful. And in that small but seismic difference, the axis of your entire reality shifts. You stop chasing light like a desperate pilgrim, and instead, you become the lantern itself. Because illumination isn't the absence of shadow, it's the realization that shadow exists only because you shine. The inner economy of abundance. In the modern world, we've made abundance synonymous with wealth. But true abundance begins as emotional capacity, the ability to hold both joy and discomfort, both clarity and uncertainty without breaking. This is the real currency of creation. Money, success, love, they all flow naturally to the one who can stay grounded in gratitude even when the winds of life are unpredictable. That's what emotional mastery really is. Not control, but containment. You become the vessel that can hold life without spilling over. And because you can hold more, you receive more. When you stop using positivity to avoid life and start using presence to engage with it, the energy of abundance begins to orbit around you because you've become the gravitational center of your own world. Manifestation revisited. Now, when you hear the word manifest, you'll feel its weight differently. You'll understand that it's not about forcing reality to conform to your desires. It's about becoming the version of yourself that reality cannot help but respond to. Your outer world rearranges when your inner world stabilizes. Your results change when your relationship with discomfort matures. You manifest not by pushing, but by resonating. The question is no longer how can I think more positively, but how can I align more truthfully? Because truth vibrates higher than optimism. Truth creates coherence. Truth is manifestation in motion. The mind as a temple. Imagine your mind as a sacred temple. Every thought is an offering. Every emotion, an incense rising. Every action, a prayer cast into motion. When the temple is neglected, cluttered with denial, decorated only with hollow slogans, its light dims. But when the temple is tended with awareness, reverence, and honesty, even your silence becomes holy. That is when life begins to serve you, not because you command it,
but because you are finally vibrating at the same frequency as the intelligence that creates worlds. Call it God, call it source, call it flow. Whatever name you give it, it has been waiting for one thing: your authenticity. Reframing the modern myth of success. We live in an age obsessed with image, with the optics of happiness, the performance of peace, the illusion of control. But behind every curated smile is a soul aching to remember something real. And that something real is not more positivity, it's presence. To be here, to feel fully, to act consciously. Because the most magnetic people on this planet aren't the loudest or the most relentlessly upbeat, they're the most rooted. They radiate steadiness. They trust their emotions, their timing, their process. They don't chase opportunities, they attract them through coherence. And coherence doesn't come from chanting, but from choosing. Choosing to see clearly, choosing to feel courageously, choosing to act faithfully, even when the outcome is uncertain. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you unstoppable. The paradox of transformation. Here is the final paradox. When you stop striving to be positive, you become truly powerful. Because power isn't born in forced light. It's born in integrated shadow. The oak tree doesn't deny the storm. It grows deeper roots because of it. The river doesn't resist the rocks. It carves its path through them. The sun doesn't fear the night. It trusts the rotation that will bring dawn again. You too are part of that same rhythm, the dance of duality that sustains the cosmos. And when you accept that both dark and light are sacred, you stop needing to control life. You begin to collaborate with it. That collaboration is the real secret, the point where logic meets intuition, where the practical merges with the mystical. It's where positive thinking evolves into conscious creation. A transformational reminder. So when the world tells you to just stay positive, smile gently. And remember, positivity is not the goal. Presence is. Optimism is not the cure. Alignment is. Manifestation is not a wish, it's a responsibility. Because your mind is not a tool for avoidance, it's an instrument for awakening. And when you learn to play it with honesty, awareness, and courage, you don't just create a better mood, you create a better world. If this stirred something within you, carry it, reflect on it, live it. Don't let these words end when the video fades to black. Let them echo in your mornings, in your decisions, in the quiet moments when you almost forget who you are. Subscribe to Positive Inner Conversation and return often, because every message here is not just designed to inspire you, but to remind you. You are not meant to think positively. You are meant to live consciously. And when you do, every thought becomes creation, every emotion becomes fuel, and every moment becomes a doorway to the extraordinary. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of your next chapter.